Commissioners to order, and it is a work session. It is Wednesday, so Joanne, you're here representing, I want to make sure I get your name right. Is it, I know it's Griffin and
Stevenson Lee.
And Stevenson Lee. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, if you go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners, for having us back. We know that you've been thinking about this a lot since we were last here in October, and we appreciate the chance to come back and talk with you again. I guess our purpose today is really to be responsive to a question that you had asked about comparative information. How does Lebanon County look in comparison to other similar counties? And we want to talk about it from two perspectives. One is from the perspective of what your operating costs and losses look like, and then also to take a look at how you might stack up against other similarly sized county nursing homes that have recently gone through sale transactions. So we're prepared to talk about both of those things in our time allotted today, if you will. So I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Michael Vinn, to start.
We'll just start on page 4, and I'll walk through it, but please feel free to stop me at any time to ask any of us questions. As Joanne said, we did a comparative analysis on similar sized Pennsylvania County owned nursing homes, both from counties that still currently operate and own their nursing home, and ones that have recently gone through a sale process, the process that you're thinking or evaluating right now. We used traditional operating expenses and other relevant financial metrics to do these analyses from both, again, on current county-owned nursing homes and also on ones that have just gone through the process. If we could flip then to page 6, I'll just go through it. The first comparison is current county-owned nursing homes, and then we'll get into the ones that have recently gone through the sale. We used 4 operating metrics, financial metrics, that being operating income per bed, EBITDA, which is the earnings before taxes, interest, depreciation, and amortization expense, divided by the operating revenues per bed. Operating margin, which is your operating revenues minus your expenditures divided by the operating revenues, and then the EBITDA margin, and that's similar to your EBITDA metric, but then it takes out the depreciation, which is a non-cash item, and then the funded debt, the interest expense on the funded debt. We chose 7 counties that are currently owned, again, own their nursing homes that are in close proximity to Lebanon, and that would be Berks County, Clinton County, Cumberland County, Lehigh County, Northampton, Schuylkill, and York. If you flip over to page 7, we did a side-by-side income statement comparison on all of those counties I just mentioned. It's all from the audited financial statements, so I apologize there's so many lines, but different counties classify the different line items differently than everybody else, so that's why there's so many line items here. But if you take a look at the yellow highlighted sections on the income statement, you're going to see, the totals, the total operating revenue, the total operating expenditures, the net income, the operating margin. And if you look at that, and we've boxed in red Lebanon County, you can see all of those except Berks County have a net operating loss, and that is due the county as a whole owning nursing homes and healthcare with the stagnant Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement rates. I don't know if you want to jump in or on that, but everyone is moving toward, because of that stagnant reimbursement rate, it is very, very hard to break even or run a profit. And we'll also show you in the future, Berks County is, even though they've been operating at a positive, they started looking at this a year and a half ago, and they just came out with a summary in November that they're expecting a loss 3 or 4 years down the road. So they've done a lot of other items to try to combat those losses, to still be working in a positive. They hired an outside operator. They're doing a fantastic job, but it's still, you're going to have to deal with the Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement rate issue, and they're projecting a loss moving forward too. So they're starting to look at, what they can do and what their options are moving forward. But as you can see, all the other 6, including Lebanon County, is operating at a loss in 12. All the EBITDA, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, is at a loss except for Berks County, and the EBITDA margins across the board, except for Cumberland County and Berks County, are at a loss as well. If you flip over to page 8, we did a comparison again with those 7 other counties on the number of beds, the operating revenue per bed, expenses per bed, the operating income or loss per bed, transfers in per bed, and the EBITDA per bed. And with the exception again of Berks, and actually in this case Cumberland County, every other one of those county-owned nursing homes is negative across the board.
For the sake of the press and the public present, would you mind talking about your acronym and letting them know what it stands for?
Oh, sure. EBITDA, again, is earnings, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization expense. So it basically takes out depreciation, which is a non-cash item. It takes out your interest expense on the funded debt. Taxes, your tax-exempt entity, but it would take out taxes. So it's basically taking the net earnings that you have on a financial basis.
One of the things in particular you might want to note on this page is if you look at the very far right, it shows the median and then the mean, the average and the midpoint of these 7. And then if you compare the numbers for either the operating loss or the operating EBITDA loss per bed, Lebanon's is in a much worse position than the median or the mean. So it really shows you that you have,
More room for improvement?
yeah, that's a very lovely way to put it.
Sure,
Yes. Yeah.
okay, that's fair.
And then if we did make 2 notes down here below that having Cedar Haven bring the operating expenses to the median, as Joanne just mentioned, would have to reduce its expenditures by approximately $550,000. And in order to break even, it would have to reduce its operating expenses in total by over $3 million, which is over 10% of the current operating expenditures for the entire budget of the nursing home. So it is, this is a industry problem with running a nursing home.
And I think, as you might remember from when we were here some months ago, it's not an indication that you're bad operators. It's really just an indication that there are constraints on counties operating nursing homes that you can't overcome in terms of the rates. And you also have a high cost structure that's associated with county government generally in comparison to the industry on a salary and benefits basis. So when you look at those 2 things together, you still have a defined benefit pension plan as an example. Those are things that you could cut out $3 million of costs to overcome, but I think you would have to ask yourselves where that would put you in terms of if you maintain those same programs and cut out other costs, what would that do to the quality of care?
And if you flip to page 9, this is again just going through those same metrics, but with those other county-owned nursing homes that have sold in 2013. And we do have Butler County, there's 4 in there, Beaver, Blair, Butler, and Franklin. Beaver, Blair, and Franklin all sold in 2013, and Butler County started the process in 13, and just in January of 2014, selected a bidder to enter into exclusive negotiations to complete the sale. So we're going to go through that same comparative analysis again with the ones that just sold.
And you are on which page now?
I'm sorry, it was page 9.
Page 9, okay.
Now I'm going to flip to page 10, and again, it was just the same comparative analysis, but with these 4 counties, nursing homes, compared to Lebanon County. As you can see, everyone except Blair County was operating at a loss. Actually, Blair was operating at a similar loss, but you add in other financing sources, and they came up with an EBITDA margin of a positive 1.59%, but the other ones were all negative again across the board. If you flip to page 11, again we go through those on the number of beds, and we do the mean and median. And as you can see again, that to get to the mean and median of these particular nursing homes, Cedar Haven would have to cut its expenditures by $350,000 in order to break even, again, the over $3 million of the entire Cedar Haven budget to get to that mean and median of these particular counties. Through all the other Pennsylvania county-owned nursing homes to just show you number of beds, occupancy rate, overall rating. Cedar Haven is well above the median on quality of care. It is above the median on occupancy rate. And again, it's still struggling, and again, that's an industry as a whole, that it is very, very difficult for a county to run a nursing home and operate it at a profitability or near a break even because of factors that are out of your control. But this goes through all the other county-owned nursing homes, which I believe there's 30 listed here. And again, your occupancy rate is the 13th highest out of the 30. You're the fifth highest out of resident staffing hours per day, and your health rating is above the average median on that, which is, you're operating very well. It's got great quality of care. It's just, again, it's hard to sustain that given the current Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement rates. On page 13, this is something we talked about a little bit earlier, that Berks County is probably one of the only ones in the Commonwealth, the only one that we know of, that is operating at such a high positive margin. They're clearing about $3 million a year net on the positive, but they've already started looking at what are their options moving forward, because they do a rolling 5-year budget, and within the 5 years, they're projecting a loss no matter what they do. So they're trying to even look at ways to combat that. We also listed here that 7 out of those 11 counties that we just did that comparison have already outsourced their operations. So they kind of went down the steps and they're still operating at a loss. It's really hard to, again, combat that. And we listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 7 here that have outsourced to several different providers. Even in the article, if you actually read it on the right, the private operator is doing a very good job. The employees are happy. It's just from a financial perspective, you can't overcome it. If you want to flip then to the takeaways, 10 of the 11 county nursing homes are operating, have a negative operating income. And again, as we've said several times throughout this, Berks is the only one that's operating in the black, but they are already projecting a deficit moving forward. 7 of the 11 have already outsourced their operations and are still operating on a negative basis. Stagnant Medicare and Medicare reimbursement rates combined with close to very high occupancy rates for most county nursing homes will likely keep operating revenue flat moving forward. There's not a lot of room to gain. It's not like the county is operating at 70% capacity or 80% capacity and can move higher profitability. You're between 94 and 95% historically, sometimes higher. The cost of counties owning and operating nursing homes continues to increase at a much greater pace than the revenue growth again. And the combination of the flat and operating revenues and increasing expenditures makes it very difficult for county-owned nursing homes to have a positive break-even operating. We did take a look at again, the median and means on a staffing basis, and Cedar Haven may be able to reduce its operating income deficit by increasing operating revenue slightly in connection with increasing its occupancy rate currently at the 94%, and reducing certain nursing-related costs because it is higher. If you look at that page where the 30 nursing homes are, it is in the top 5 on the amount of nurses that it has there, and compared with its peers. But that'll be very challenging to even bring, you're looking at a $3.1 million, and as Joanne said, there's not that much room to cut to get into with what the defined benefit plan is and with your reimbursement rates. The economics described above would make Cedar Haven unprofitable in the future, and then require, again, the continued subsidies, albeit you may be able to cut some of them moving forward, but not near enough to totally eliminate those subsidies moving forward. And as you know, that has a lot of impacts on the other county businesses, such as your credit rating and your borrowing costs and things moving forward.
One other thing that I'm sure that you know but should keep in mind is there's a lot of pressure from the Department of Public Welfare to reduce the number of people who are in nursing home beds. They really want people to be in community-based services if possible, or in assisted living, which they don't pay for. And so I think even the opportunity to close that gap between 94, and it's almost impossible to operate at 100% because there are too many variables in terms of gender and the acuity of the resident to be able to get to that level. I think you're going to see the trend going in the opposite direction. The old days of waiting lists for nursing homes aren't there anymore. A lot of nursing homes now are in a position where they're struggling to make the 90% threshold for DPW to get paid for the bed hold days. So that's a different challenge that's coming externally that will also put financial pressure on you.
Commissioner Phillips or Commissioner Ames, do you have any questions?
I do not.
No, I don't have any.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
Senator, did you want to say anything? No? Okay. Any?
One more question for emphasis. Your recommendation, looking at everything, the best solution for Lebanon County as concerned Cedar Haven would be what?
I think our conclusion is you'll never close that $3 million subsidy gap without outsourcing the nursing home. It's selling it outright and having somebody else be responsible for it. Because otherwise you're going to be responsible for the capital cost associated with it going forward, as well as for all the costs of the defined benefit plan, which you have as a county issue generally, but this is a lot of employees. And you're dealing with flat revenue and declining occupancy potentially going forward. So although we think it's possible that you could make some improvements operationally that would close some of that gap, as Mike pointed out, $3 million is over 10% of your operating budget, and that's an enormous chunk to take out of operating expenses on an annual basis, which you would have to sustain.
And also, we did look at, we've gone through the history and the capital expenditures to keep up renovations and maintenance. And there's a lot of deferred capital expenditures that are still outstanding there, so you would have to, put more money into it as well to keep up the maintenance and the facility.
And your numbers here didn't speculate on that at all?
It did not.
Correct.
This was just pure operational.
And if we could just go back for 1 second to what we talked about in October, I think that you see that what we're looking at today is that the counties that we looked at, and we didn't choose the ones that were operating at losses, they virtually all are operating at losses because everybody faces the same position that you're facing. Quite a number have made the decision that they can't be the owner and operator of the facility anymore. Another group of 5 in our presentation are doing it or looking at it right now. So it does seem as though it's the trend, and I don't think it takes away from the county's commitment to ensure that there are Medicaid beds available for its citizen residents. You want to make sure that the home is available and operating at high quality, which DPW really takes responsibility from you in terms of evaluating it. And as we talked about last time, no county has the county home as the sole source of Medicaid beds anymore. Virtually every nursing home has a very high proportion of Medicaid residents. So I don't think that you need to feel in any way that you would be abdicating a responsibility that you took on 50 years ago to provide a service that no one else was doing then, because now the times have changed significantly.
Right, Bill. Are you here in your official capacity as an attorney?
Absolutely.
That's all I want to know.
Okay,
Thank you very much.